What's up, desktoppers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today I'm discussing Hunter Labrada versus Sergio Oliva Jr. It's confirmed they'll be going head-to-head at the 2021 Chicago Pro in just 14 weeks' time. I've got physique updates from both of these guys, plus I go pose for pose, head-to-head, based on their last contest, who I think will win the 2021 Chicago Pro. So let's get straight into it. So Chris Aceto just confirmed last night on his Instagram live that Sergio will be doing the 2021 Chicago Pro. Also, Sergio confirmed it himself by saying 14 weeks out on a recent post here, where he's doing some concentrated bicep stuff, where he's looking pretty damn impressive as well. Now, Hunter Labrada confirmed it about a week ago on his Instagram that he's doing the Chicago Pro. He made that announcement. So this sets up for an awesome battle, because as most of you know, Sergio Oliva Jr.'s father, Sergio Oliva Sr., was obviously a Mr. Olympia competitor, a Mr. Olympia winner. And obviously, Hunter Labrada's father, Lee Labrada, came as high as second at the Mr. Olympia back in the late 80s, early 90s. He was a top competitor. So this is awesome to see the second generation going head to head. And I can't wait to see the battle and who actually ends up on top, because both of them, you could really say both of them are sort of even pegging in terms of how good they are and what they've achieved in their careers so far. So let's go through the stats. So Sergio Oliva Jr. is 36 years of age. Hunter Labrada is 28 currently. He will be 29 by the time that Chicago Pro rolls around. Height, Sergio Oliva is 6 foot from everything I've read online. Hunter Labrada is 5'9", so Sergio has the height advantage there. Whether you think it's an actual advantage being taller or not, he's 3 inches taller than Hunter. Current weight, Sergio Oliva Jr. is 306 pounds according to his Instagram currently, and Hunter Labrada is 274. So in terms of their actual weight, this means they're the same weight, sort of pound for pound pretty much. Maybe Hunter has a slight advantage in weight, being 5'9" and being 274, but it's much of a muchness. I normally say there's 10 pounds to 12 pounds per inch. So 3 inches, and Sergio is 32 pounds heavier. So there you go. It's pretty much on point in terms of their size differential. Just depends who's in better condition now. Maybe you give the edge to Hunter just slightly. Now, current achievement, Sergio Oliva has won the 2017 New York Pro. He placed 5th in the 2020 Arnold Classic. Hunter Labrada won the 2020 Tampa Pro and placed 8th in the 2020 Mr. Olympia. And when you match it up, 5th in the Arnold Classic is sort of equivalent to about 8th in the Olympia. But Sergio did, beat out some really good names. He, only got beaten by Big Ramy, Steve Kuklo, Dexter Jackson, and William Bonac. So the guys that beat Sergio were all super high quality. Now, same thing as Hunter, really. I mean, the only guys that you could say Hunter maybe could have beaten on his day was sort of like Ian Valliere and maybe Akeem Williams. The other top 5 guys in the Olympia are pretty well established, and they would have been very hard to knock off. Now, as I go pose by pose, I'm using 2 different, obviously, physiques that these guys brought in 2020. So Hunter, I'm using the 2020 Tampa Pro. I believe that was his best. I believe he was a little bit harder there than he was at the Olympia. So overall, it was a better package. And Sergio, obviously, the 2020 Arnold Classic has been his best package to date. So I'm using both of them. Now, at both of those shows, it was pretty average lighting. So I'm sort of going a little bit by what I see in the photos, but also what I've seen in the videos as well. And I've got both the posing routines up on the screen, as you guys can see now. So let's get into it and go pose by pose. And we'll start with a front double bicep. So you see, obviously, Hunter on the left here. Now, Hunter, I believe, has the better structure in his front double bicep. But he does have the pec tear, as you can see, on his left pec. Now, how much does that actually play into things, and how much does that matter? It's really hard to say. I mean, in terms of conditioning between these two, I'd probably give the edge to Sergio on this one. But I've got to tell you, in terms of the midsection and everything, he does have sort of elongated midsection, and his lats don't pop quite as much from the front, probably because his torso is a little bit longer than Hunter's as well. But Sergio does have those huge biceps, just like his dad. They're not peaky biceps, but they're absolutely enormous. But they do have a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses as well, because they both have giant arms. Their backs are slightly undersized compared to the rest of their physiques, and both have phenomenal legs. So they've sort of got the same strengths and weaknesses. So it makes it a really good matchup in terms of that. But just based on conditioning, I would give it to Sergio, and based off structure, I would give it to Hunter. So this one's actually a tie for me. I really couldn't separate it. This one is too hard to tell until they stand next to each other on stage. The front lat spread. Now this one I'm giving to Sergio, but only just, because when you look at Sergio's physique, his pecs look really hard here. He's got tremendous arms. His legs are really good. And with that height advantage, I think that would just give it to him over Hunter's package here. And just because he's a little bit more crisp, just a tiny bit. And that pec tear is evident on that front lat spread as well. Although I do love the structure of Hunter Labrada on this one, and I do think it's insanely close. but I'll give the edge to that one on Sergio. Now we move to the side chest. Now Hunter Labrada is packed full of muscle on this one because you can see obviously the arms are huge. The chest is probably obviously a slight weak point on Hunter there, the same as Sergio. They both have the same strengths and weaknesses, which is just crazy to sort of think about, even though they have different sort of shapes. From the waist down, you'd probably say Hunter has slightly more hamstring hang. Although, looking at this, I was actually sort of surprised at how good Sergio's was. And being a taller guy as well, that's even more impressive on stage. So, in terms of the side chest, I would say this one is a tie or a slight edge to Hunter. But I'm going to say it's a tie because in terms of conditioning, Sergio is maybe slightly better, but it is very, very close. I think Hunter is more, I suppose, slightly more complete on that one. It just looks like the pose flows a tiniest bit better. But both of them look tremendous on the side chest, and I'll just give a tie on that one as well. Now the side tricep. Now I had to find a different photo here of Sergio because I could not find one of him doing it individually in this Arnold Classic. Whether it's a pose he doesn't like or what, I'm not too sure. Now this is a very strong pose here for Hunter Labrada. You can see his tricep gets fully striated. You can't see it as well in this photo just because the lighting wasn't the best, but all his pre-contest photos, his triceps are striated like crazy. He's hard through the midsection, keeps his midsection very tight. His legs from the side are crazy. I just think it's probably one of his strongest poses. But Sergio, honestly, if I was Sergio, I'd be hitting this pose as well because I think the pose looks really good on him. And I love how they both hit it the old school sort of way, but leg trailing. So I'll give this one to Hunter, but I've got to tell you, Sergio does look better than I actually thought he would on this side tricep. Back double bicep. Now, I'd say Hunter is hitting this pose slightly better just because I think Sergio's pulling his elbows back a little bit too far and it's making his back look maybe a tiny bit smaller than it actually is. While it may make it look a little bit more detailed, I think the trade-off isn't actually worth it. But as you can see, through the glutes, through the back, Sergio is definitely harder. But I'd say Hunter has a slightly more complete back. But I would lean towards the conditioning of his pose. You can see the glutes of Sergio all the way in, and I think that looks very, very impressive. So I'm just going to give the edge slightly to Sergio on the back double bicep. Now, moving on to the back lat spread. This one, I think Hunter fills it out a little bit more. As I mentioned with the back, I think that his back is more complete. While he doesn't have the same hardness in the glutes as Sergio and the hamstrings really as well, I think the pose is more complete here by Hunter. So I'd give the back lat spread to Hunter Labrada. Moving on to the ab and thigh. Now, Hunter doesn't ever hit the ab and thigh traditionally, at least from what I could see in the Tampa Pro. And Sergio didn't have any individual photos of him hitting an ab and thigh either. Now, let's look at Hunter. They're very different poses, so if you want to scrap this pose, you can definitely scrap this pose and not even count it. But Hunter, this pose is very, very strong for him. You can see, obviously, the muscularity on his physique. It looks very, very imposing. He is very hard through the midsection. His quads are cross-striated. It's a very impressive shot for Hunter, really, overall. Now with Sergio on the ab and thigh, his legs look really good here. He's got tremendous legs, especially for his height as well. From the chest upwards looks really good as well. And his midsection, his abs are really balanced and look really good. The only thing that sort of detracts from his pose is his obliques are slightly thick and that his lats don't pop quite enough. For me, if he could fix those two things a little bit, if his lats pop more from the front in 2021 and his obliques can come in just that little bit, not sure how you'd actually even do that, whether it's just not training them directly or maybe, you know, some people wear waist trainers and stuff like that. But I think that improved this pose a huge amount. So I've got to give this one to Hunter Labrada. But if you want to scrap it just because Hunter's not hitting it traditionally, totally understand that as well. And the most muscular, I would give this one to Hunter. He just looks harder in the pose, whether it's just because of the lighting that Sergio is actually under or not, I'm not too sure. Sergio actually looks very balanced on this pose. His chest is maybe slightly underdeveloped compared to the rest of his physique because he is, you know, obviously his legs are huge, arms are huge, delts are huge. So his chest sort of just falls slightly behind. With Hunter, he obviously does have the pec tear, which I mentioned earlier. That's the only really detraction from his pose because everything else is really, really good on this. I mean, Hunter's chest actually looks even better on this pose and looks bigger than it does on the side chest for whatever reason. I'm not too sure. So it is an edge to Hunter Labrada. So Hunter I have winning at 4 poses to 2. If you scrap the ab and thigh pose, it's 3 poses to 2. So it's very, very close. And really, this is going to come down to one, who's in better condition. I think Sergio will probably have to be in better condition than Hunter to beat him. If they're even with conditioning, I think it'll be very, very close, maybe the slight edge to Hunter. So it's really going to come down to conditioning and who brings it on the day. But guys, I want you to let me know, who do you have winning between Hunter Labrada and Sergio Oliva Jr. in the 2021 Chicago Pro? It's going to be an awesome contest. I cannot wait for it. There's a heap of names being thrown around that might even do that show. And I mean, whoever else does it is going to have a very, very tough time trying to get that win against these two competitors who both could place sort of like top 6 to top 8 in the 2021 Mr. Olympia if they're both to get there. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it from me. If you guys like and appreciate this content, please give this video a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up for myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding. So for Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, we are out.